Hi everyone, welcome to the case study session on administrative issues in the ethics course brought to you by Sunya IAS. So a few pointers on things to keep in mind while answering case studies on administrative issues. So use the knowledge that you have gained in studying for prelims or mains for GS paper 2, polity and governance. The administrative issues will usually involve you as a functionary of the government, as a district magistrate or a senior police officer, or as a director in a particular ministry, right? So you will be put in the role of a government functionary, and you will be asked to mention the steps that you will take to deal with a particular situation, which can be an ethical dilemma in the office or in the ministry, right? So study a little bit about what is the role of a district magistrate, what are his powers. If you are a senior officer in the ministry, what would your powers be? If you are in the police, what would your powers be, right? So basic understanding of what the different government functionaries are responsible for, right? So study the functioning of a bureaucracy from the internet so that your solutions for the case study are realistic and they do not overstep the boundaries of real government functionaries, and you will have a fair idea of what your powers and responsibilities in the given role are, right? So incorporate what you study in newspapers. Keep an eye out on news items dealing with how different government functionaries handle a particular situation. So, for instance, when there was the lockdown and large scale migration of laborers, daily wagers happened, so there were different ways in which each government functionary was dealing with the particular situation or was handling that situation, right? So, a district magistrate of a particular district where a lot of these reverse migrants are coming, they had to deal with the situation differently as compared to the district magistrate of a particular district where these migrants were leaving from, right? So you need to understand the basics of a particular situation and what your powers and responsibilities and what your limitations are before you start writing this answer, right? So we are going to solve case study question number 4 in the UPSC CSE mains 2020 ethics paper. So you are a municipal commissioner of a large city having the reputation of a very honest and upright officer. A huge multi-purpose mall is under construction in your city in which a large number of daily wage earners are employed. So one night during monsoons, a big chunk of the roof collapsed, causing instant death of 4 laborers, including 2 minors. Right? Many more were seriously injured, requiring immediate medical attention, and the mishap resulted in a big hue and cry, forcing the government to institute an inquiry. So, your preliminary inquiry has revealed a series of anomalies. The material used for the construction was of poor quality. Despite the approved building plans permitting only one basement, an additional basement has been constructed. This was overlooked during the periodic inspections by the building inspector of the municipal corporation. In your inquiry, you noticed that the construction of the mall was given the green signal despite encroaching on areas earmarked for a green belt and a slip road in the zonal master plan of the city. The permission to construct the mall was accorded by the previous municipal commissioner, who is not only your senior and well known to you professionally, but also a good friend, right? So here the main things to emphasize on are that you are the municipal commissioner of the city. You have the reputation of a very honest and upright officer. A huge multi-purpose mall is being constructed, right? And a lot of daily wage earners are employed in the construction of that mall. So there are monsoons and a portion of the roof has collapsed. An instant death of 4 laborers has happened, including 2 minors. Others are seriously injured and required medical attention, right? So all of this has resulted in a big public furore, and the government has instituted an inquiry into the incident. You have done the preliminary inquiry, and it has revealed a lot of deviations. So material was of poor quality, approved building plans had only one basement, and additional basement is being constructed, right? And there were periodic inspections by the building inspector of the corporation, but he has not mentioned about any of these in his reports. You also notice that construction of mall has kind of encroached on green areas and a slip road which was to be built in the zonal master plan. This permission was given by the previous municipal commissioner, and that person is your senior and known to you professionally, and he's also a good friend. So prima facie, the case appears to be of a widespread nexus between the officials of the municipal corporation and the builders. Uh, the officials of the municipal corporation have helped the builder to construct this mall without complying with the regulatory norms, right? Your colleagues are putting pressure on you to go slow in the inquiry. The builder, who is rich and influential, happens to be a close relative of a powerful minister in the state cabinet, and the builder is persuading you to hush up the matter, promising a fortune to do so. He has also hinted that if this matter is not resolved at the earliest in his favor, there is somebody in his office who is waiting to file a case against you under the POSH Act, right? So this is Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. So now questions that have been asked are three. In a 20 marks question, if there are three questions asked, it means you should be writing around 6 to 7 points in each subpart of the question, right? So the first one is discuss the ethical issues involved in the case. Second is what are the options available to you in this situation. And the third one is explain your selected course of action, right? So coming to how to identify the ethical issues, you should be looking at each and every point that has been mentioned in the case study. Every sentence will give you an indication of what to write in these three subparts of the question. So everything written in the case study is of utmost importance, right? So the analysis is that the decision maker, is the municipal commissioner of a large city. So you have to give your solutions accordingly, right? Your reputation is of an honest and upright officer. So the multipurpose mall is under construction. Large number of daily wage earners are employed. During monsoons, a big chunk of the roof has collapsed. It caused instant death of 4 laborers, including 2 minors. So this is how point by point you have to analyze the particular case study. So here I have noted all these points down just for your reference. In the exam you just need to underline each and every important bit, right? So as you can see, I have not left out any part of the case study, because all of this will be used in generating the ethical issues involved and the solutions. For example, let's say large number of daily wage earners are employed, right? So here, whenever I take some action, I might want to see whether this employment of daily wage earners is getting affected by the decision that I am taking, right? So everything, every little point mentioned in the case study can be used to generate points for the answer. So more were seriously injured, requiring immediate medical attention, and there's a big hue and cry forcing the government to institute an inquiry. So now you have done the preliminary inquiry, and it has revealed a series of anomalies. Material used was poor quality. Approved building plans permitted only one basement, but an additional basement has been constructed. Uh, this was overlooked during the periodic inspections by building inspector of the municipal corporation. The construction of the mall was given the green signal despite encroaching on areas earmarked for a green belt and a slip road in the zonal master plan, and this permission was given by the previous municipal commissioner, right? So if you see here, a lot of things point to the ethical dilemmas, which is the first subsection or subpart of the questions which have been asked. So material use is of poor quality, which has led to safety concerns for the people who were constructing the mall, right? Without approval, one additional basement has been constructed. This is another ethical issue. Overlooking periodic inspections by the inspector of municipal corporation. So this inspector is not doing his work properly, right? If he had highlighted that one additional basement has been constructed, so maybe this mishap could have been avoided by bringing to light more irregularities, and the site would have been inspected properly, right? So this is an ethical lapse on the part of this building inspector. So then construction of the mall was given the green signal despite encroaching on areas earmarked for a green belt. So even environmental ethics are involved here, and these are not getting fulfilled. These are not getting satisfied, right? All of this also indicates the involvement of the previous municipal commissioner, who might have been lenient or biased towards this particular builder, right? Moving on. So the previous municipal commissioner is your senior and he's also a good friend. Now that makes the situation all the more difficult for you because you have to deal with your senior. He's also your friend, right? There's a widespread nexus between officials of the municipal corporation and the builders. So this is something that has been pointed to in the entire case study. Colleagues are putting pressure on you to go slow because they have a network with the builders, right? The builder is rich and influential, and he's also a close relative of a powerful minister in the state cabinet, which means that he might target you and he might take some action against you, right? The powerful minister in the state cabinet can kind of uh, put some obstacles in your work and in your career as the municipal commissioner. He is also persuading you to hush up the matter and promising you a fortune if you do so. If not resolved at the earliest in his favor, he is saying that somebody will file a case against you under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. So not only is he targeting your professional life, he's also targeting your character, which might affect your personal life as well, and your image in front of your family, in front of your kids. So these are certain ethical dilemmas that you have to deal with, that you have to be aware of, that if you go ahead and perform your duty as you are supposed to do, these are the things that you will have to face, right? Coming to the ethical issues part of the question, so I have identified here some ethical issues, and you can mention any ethical issues that come to your mind. However, try using the points given in the particular case study to identify the ethical issues that you can mention, right? So the first thing over here is that some people have died and some people got injured. So justice for the injured versus self-preservation. If you take this inquiry forward, you might be targeted with a prevention of sexual harassment case against you, right? So there's a threat that the builder might frame you in certain cases or might want to take some action against you. So that is why your self-preservation is in danger. Hence, the first ethical issue here is justice for the injured versus self-preservation. Next, public interest versus self-interest. The public interest lies in taking the inquiry forward and taking it to the logical conclusion and penalizing people who have not followed or complied with the rules and regulations. Your self-interest is might be to hush up the inquiry so that you are not targeted unfairly for no fault of yours. However, this is not a very good ethical option because you will suffer from crisis of conscience and internal dissonance, and you might feel guilty that you did the wrong thing, right? Environmental ethics versus development and employment. So on the one hand, environmental norms were overlooked while undertaking this particular project, and on the other hand you have a multi-purpose mall coming up and a lot of daily wages have been employed to construct the mall, plus once the mall comes up there will be more employment generated, right? So there's a contradiction between these two issues. Then you have safety norms versus business interests. So the material used was of poor quality. Apparently, this might have been done to save on costs, right? So that is business interest. So safety norms versus business interest is another thing. Crony capitalism versus regulatory compliance. So crony capitalism is basically when builders and the regulatory authorities who are supposed to be regulating and inspecting these projects are colluding with each other and not following the norms and guidelines laid down. So, for instance, in this particular case, the inspector who was responsible for inspecting the premises, he himself has overlooked the construction of one additional basement, right? Whereas regulatory compliance required only one basement as per the approved building plan, right? So this is another ethical issue. Then you have integrity and conscience versus friendship. So your own integrity and conscience, what your inner conscience permit you to do, and you are a very honest and upright officer. So you might not be able to face yourself if you don't do what is the ethically right thing to do in this case. Versus your friends might alienate you and isolate you because you did not go slow on their inquiry. Their interests lie in hushing up this particular inquiry, right? So as you can see, I've identified a few ethical issues from this particular case. I have used each and every point that was mentioned in the case study to come up with these ethical issues. So basically, whenever there is a case study, please refer to all the points and try to think what is the ethical conundrum in this particular point that is mentioned in the case study. So moving on to the options available to you. The first option, as I said, there will be two extreme options and one of the options can be the middle path. So one option is bring the anomalies revealed by the preliminary inquiry on record and investigate further to penalize the wrongdoers, right? So here, this is a completely transparent option and you are doing what is required of you to do, right? So the merits of this option are that your personal ethics are satisfied of honesty, of integrity, then you are doing justice to the deceased and injured, right? As you are answerable to the families of the deceased, especially the minors and the injured, then you are upholding public interests, making these people follow safety norms. It acts a strong deterrent to not overlook safety and environmental norms and effective compliance with regulations, right? And you're penalizing those responsible for regulatory compliances but who did not do their duty properly. For instance, the building inspector. So, because he overlooked the construction of one additional building, one additional basement, and if that had been brought to light, maybe a further inquiry would have revealed all these anomalies earlier and the mishap would be avoided. Coming to the demerits, there's a lot of pressure of the colleagues and seniors to stall the inquiry, right? This is mentioned in the case study, and you are kind of antagonizing your seniors as well as your colleagues by this particular option. Then there's threat of personal targeting under POSH Act and unemployment of large number of daily wage earners. That is another thing that might happen if you stall the project due to your inquiry. Second option available to you is completely unethical. It is hush up the inquiry and let the construction resume after public furore subsides. Right. So the advantages of this particular option are that self-preservation. So self-preservation happens and preservation of cordial relations with colleagues and seniors who want you to hush up the inquiry, and employment of daily wage earners stays secure, right? Apart from this, the demerits here as are that you will face crisis of conscience due to not following up on your personal ethics of honesty and integrity. Then there is injustice to the deceased and the injured people, right? Public interest is hindered because here you are letting the construction resume without even penalizing the builder who overlooked all the regulatory compliances. It also encourages a culture of lackadaisical attitude towards compliance of rules and regulations. So other business houses will also see that nothing has happened in this particular case, which is a signal to them that they can also flout rules and norms and do whatever they want and get away with it. And in regulatory organizations, it fosters a culture where they can get away easily with corruption. The building inspector, the municipal commissioner, they They should have performed their duty better to find out these irregularities earlier. But since this has not happened, and they are also not being penalized, so it shows that other employees can also get away with such kind of behavior. Moving on to the third option, which is the middle path. So what you can also do is to kind of create a better situation for yourself as well as uphold public interest, is that you go slow on the inquiry so that the public furore subsides and the builders and authorized persons involved also get complacent during that time, that okay, you are doing or taking steps in their favor, and this helps you avoid their threats, right? So the one of the merits is self-preservation, right? And confidentially, meanwhile, you write about the entire situation to the vigilance department and ask them to arrange for conducting an impartial inquiry, providing details of anomalies revealed, right? So here what you are doing is you apprise the vigilance department of the situation, that you are being persuaded to stall the inquiry, or otherwise you are being threatened with a case under Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, and you can request them to conduct an impartial inquiry and initiate that from their end, right? Because you don't know, so many people might be compromised in the entire department who are kind of pursuing the builder's interest instead of public interest, right? So the merits here are that it will help in self-preservation, preservation of cordial relations with colleagues and seniors. The employment of daily wage earners is secure, it continues, and there will be no crisis of conscience because you have done the right thing. You have brought it on record that all of this is happening and they are trying to suppress the inquiry. So you are doing the right thing. Then justice to the deceased and injured, and public interest is upheld. There are a few demerits in this option. So delay in inquiry might lead to disappearance of evidences and their modification, right? So you need to conduct the inquiry soon so that you get to know under which circumstances the accident has happened and what exactly is the situation. And personal threats might only be delayed once the vigilance department starts interrogating and investigating things. The builder and your colleagues and seniors can still come and threaten you. And they might get to know that you were the one who wrote to the vigilance department. People in the vigilance department might also be compromised. That is another thing. You are leaving the duty which you are supposed to perform to someone else, right? And justice delayed is justice denied. So in this case, you are waiting till the public furore subsides and everyone hushes up, and justice is delayed. So the selected course of action, you can choose any of the three courses of action, but obviously the second course of action does not look good because it's completely unethical and there is no way that you can justify choosing the second course of action. However, here I would go for option number one, which is the first extreme, as it upholds my devotion to duty as a public servant. So the duty that I have to do, I'm upholding that, right? And this particular option also addresses all the demerits that we just saw in the third option, which was the middle path of writing to the vigilance department. So there is no delay in justice being served, there is no delay in the proceedings which might lead to compromises on the evidences, etc. And this is in line with my inner conscience. I am an honest and upright public servant, so my crisis of conscience will not happen. Then justice to the people who are affected is served. Finally, it upholds safety norms and environmental regulations, creating strong deterrent effect, and discourages other people from indulging in such corrupt practices. To address the demerits, I would write to the vigilance department on the threats I am receiving and the pressure on me to slow down the inquiry. Right, so here the major threat is of self-preservation, right? So what I can do to counter that is I'll write to the vigilance department and they can for help to conduct the inquiry properly because I'm being threatened, right? I would also mention the widespread nexus between the officials of the municipal corporation and the builder. so that it's on record about the corrupt practices. As of now, it's just an occupational hazard which is being investigated. I also want to bring the corruption on record. So if the vigilance department does not act on this, I can escalate this through the hierarchy to Central Vigilance Commission as per the prescribed office procedures. You can also go to the State Vigilance Commission, whatever is the correct hierarchy to go to. Right, I will choose this option as completing the inquiry on time is the right thing to do. Moreover, personal threats to file cases against me are a part and parcel of the job that I do. Hence, since I have not done anything wrong, I will face the case boldly and prove my innocence. So they might fabricate the evidences. So I'll try to collect evidences of them threatening me with such cases and put them on record, right? So that I can later on prove my innocence. Moreover, I will also bring all the evidence of threats and persuasion on record in the file, which is what I mentioned just now. And this will help to penalize the wrongdoers as well as in the false case if it is filed against me. Finally, I will try to talk to the inspector and previous municipal commissioner to do the right thing. I'll also try to explain my perspective on why it is important for me to take the investigation to its logical conclusion. So the building inspector needs to be thoroughly sensitized that what he is doing is not right, because he might be overlooking such safety lapses in other buildings as well. So it is very important for public safety norms to be enforced. Then the previous municipal commissioner is my senior as well as he's a good friend. So I will try to make him understand my point of view of why it is important for me to continue the investigation, not hush it up. Right? Moving on. So here I have listed out a few useful keywords for administrative issues based case studies. So one is corruption is an ill of the society. This is a general statement which you can use. And constitutional provisions can be used. Laws and rules, example RTI and conduct rules. So your conduct rules forbid you to enter into any sort of agreement with builders and all, which compromises your duty, right? RTI is Right to Information Act, which you can use to find out any information in a particular department if it is not confidential. Right, then you have as a public servant, you are accountable to the government, political executive, judiciary, as well as the public, right? Then biases and stereotypes. So a lot of human behavior is driven by the biases of that human being and the stereotypes that they believe in. Then you should not transgress any moral principles. So this is one phrase that you can use. Moral imperatives. What is right to do morally and ethically? You can. It's called moral imperatives. What is your professional duty in a particular situation? And what is your personal responsibility in a situation, right? Then systemic changes, changes that should be brought out in the system as a whole to correct any deficiencies. Public scrutiny, any issues which are there can face public scrutiny once a mishap or some accident happens. Commitment towards the nation. That is why you are doing the job, for your commitment towards the nation. Internal guilt of not doing enough. Yes. So if you had stalled the inquiry in the last case study and waited for the vigilance department to take up the proceedings forward, then you will face internal guilt of not doing enough on your own, right? What is the due process, or is there any arbitrary process that's being followed, right? So things should happen using the due process. Then you have neutrality, objectivity, and impartiality. A civil servant should be neutral, he should be objective and not subjective in his dealings, and he should be impartial and not biased towards anyone. Then you have legal fallouts. Certain rules and regulations create some legal fallouts, as in they are in contradiction with the legal provisions. Civil service values and empathy, right? So one of the values that you can quote is empathy, understanding the situation that a person is in. A lot of other civil service values are there. For instance, you have honesty, integrity, and commitment to the duty, right? Moving on, dedication to public service, leadership in adverse scenarios. For instance, in the last case study, you are showing leadership skills while handling so many stakeholders who are against you. Then sensitivity and tolerance of different viewpoints. This is very important so that you form a holistic picture of any particular issue and are not biased towards one viewpoint. Integrity. This is basically doing the right thing. Efficiency and effectiveness. Basically, the government should work efficiently and effectively as well. Efficiency means doing it something in a cost effective and time effective manner, and effectiveness is basically the impact of what you want to do is appropriate, is what you want it to happen, right? For instance, for a poverty alleviation program, it will be effective if the poverty rates are reduced in a particular area, right? Timely completion is very important in a government setting. There are a lot of cost overruns and time overruns due to project approval delays, etc. Public interest is the interest of the public, right? What is the best thing for public welfare is public interest. Conflict and confrontation. Instead of indulging in conflict and confrontation, when you disagree with someone, you should peacefully and amicably try to understand and argue and reason out with each other. Blow the whistle. This you can use this phrase when you come across something which is wrong, it is being done secretly, so you kind of blow the whistle, write directly to the vigilance department instead of following the hierarchy in the organization. However, it is suggested that you should follow the hierarchy in a particular organization. But if you have any reason to believe or suspect that the hierarchy to be followed might be compromised or might threaten you, then you can use this route of blowing the whistle. Obedience to the directives of seniors. You are accountable to the seniors' directions, right? So this is one thing that you have to take into account while doing any administrative issues based case studies. Breach of trust in public office. So this is another thing that you have to keep in mind when you take any decision in a government setting, that your office is a public office. You have a fiduciary obligation to safeguard the interests of the public, and if you don't perform your duties as you are supposed to, then there is breach of trust. Cognitive dissonance. This is mental dissonance, basically when you feel that you should have done something else and you do something completely different and wrong according to your conscience. It creates cognitive dissonance. Commission of crime, basically when you commit a crime, you can use this phrase, or when someone commits a crime. Reputation is built in decades but spoiled in a second, right? So you earn your respect while working hard and doing your job dutifully. But once your name gets embroiled in any particular scam or a scandal, it's spoiled in 1 second, right? Departmental action, the action that the department takes to discipline you or to penalize you for any wrongdoing that you have done is called departmental action. Dishonorable termination. Dishonorable termination basically means that you have done something wrong and you have proven to do it after an impartial inquiry, and then your services are terminated or ended dishonorably. Departmental channels. The set hierarchy through which you should communicate any particular issue is given in the manual of office procedure, and these are the departmental channels that you should use for doing any particular office work. Code of conduct. So there is a code of conduct or code of behavior which you should follow when you work in any organization. So there's a set of rules which you are supposed to follow as an employee of that particular organization. That this set of rules is called code of conduct. Some more keywords. Burden of proof. basically who has to prove whether this person has indulged in wrongdoing or is innocent. Breach of organizational rules and procedures. This phrase you can use whenever some organizational rules and procedures are being flouted or not being followed. For instance, in the last case study, the inspector has overlooked the construction of one additional basement, and this is showing breach of organizational rules and procedures. Then there are set precedents, how in a particular case a decision was taken. This is usually uh, done in judiciary, right? And dereliction of duty. So if you hush up the inquiry in the last case study and forget about the entire incident, then you are performing dereliction of duty. You are leaving your duty and not doing it, right? Vigilance department. This almost every one of us would have read in the general studies papers that there is a vigilance department which takes care of any corruption or related cases for employees. Written complaint. So you should always record whatever you want to say in writing. Otherwise, the an oral complaint does not have any record, right? It should be written. State of Central Vigilance Commission. This is basically superior to the vigilance department of an organization. So you can escalate to central or state vigilance commission depending on which department's vigilance section has not catered to or heard your request or given you a fair hearing. Then you have a strong work ethic, right? Punctuality and doing your work in the timelines and doing your work correctly and with integrity. So this is strong work ethic. Perseverance in the face of adversity. Basically, you are resilient and you try to keep working hard in the face of adversity. Avoiding confrontation while standing up to injustice, right? So you should avoid any confrontation and you should instead persuade or uh, try to bring the moral principles which are being forgotten in front of the person you are confronting and try to make him understand and try to reason with him, right? Then professional integrity. Basically, integrity is what you think is right. Professional integrity is what your profession feels is right for you to do in a particular situation. Then you have enforcement of law in letter and spirit to create deterrence. The law should not only be enforced on paper and just mechanically, but in spirit also. So you should not try to find any loopholes in the law and just comply with it mechanically. Written order. So in one of the case studies, let's say a politician has called you and asked you to stall the inquiry that is happening, right? So you can always say that you will emphasize for a written order to be sent to you so that it's on record that this particular person has asked you to stop this inquiry and you have done it as per their directives, right? In political interference, I'm sure everyone knows, Civil Service Conduct Rules 1964. So these are basically conduct rules that are supposed to be followed by all civil servants. Office procedure. Basically, this includes the rules for performing any particular work in the office, continuous monitoring and reporting. So if you suspect that there might be irregularities in any particular case, so you can continuously monitor and report on that particular case, right? Moving on. This is the second case study that we are going to solve together. So a minister's son was driving the vehicle in a very rash and erratic manner. Erratic means in a very haphazard and dangerous manner. The traffic constable on duty at a traffic intersection stopped the vehicle, right? Suspecting that the boy driving is possibly drunk, he calls the patrolling group. They came and subject the boy to breath analyzer. The suspicion turns out to be correct. All this action took about 1 hour. In the meanwhile, the boy was throwing tantrums and dropping names. He also made few calls and tried to slap the constable on duty. But the constable on duty remained undeterred. On the arrival at the police station, the SHO took note of the situation. Just before filing the case, he gets a call from his superior to release the boy without any arrest or fine. Analyze the situation from different perspectives and explain what action shall SHO take in midst of such a dilemma. Coming to the analysis, this is a very straightforward case study. There is the minister's son who is driving his vehicle in an erratic manner. There's a traffic constable on duty who has stopped the vehicle. He called the patrolling group who subjected the boy to breath analyzer. It is confirmed that he is drunk. The boy has been throwing tantrums and dropping names. He made a few calls and tried to slap the constable on duty. The constable on duty has remained undeterred and he takes the boy to the police station. The SHO gets a call from his superior to release the boy without any arrest or fine. Okay, so the first question is that analyze the situation from different perspectives. Now, for this, you have to first identify who are the main stakeholders. So many people are there who are involved, right? There's the minister's son, there's constable on duty, there's the patrolling group, the SHO, superior, minister, and the public at large, right? So these people are the stakeholders. So you can see how I have picked up each and every person mentioned in the case study, and to that I have added, because minister is mentioned, I have also taken minister and added the public at large, right? Because the entire situation also concerns public safety, right? Okay, so situation from different perspectives. What does the minister's son want? Right? So you need to analyze this situation from his perspective. So he is indulging in drunk driving and wants to use his father's position to get out of the situation. This is pretty straightforward. He has tried to slap the constable and has been dropping names continuously. He is not behaving like a responsible citizen, and he's also showing brazen disregard for rules of not driving while being drunk, as well as government functionaries. Okay, so next you have the constable on duty. So this constable is doing his duty impeccably without fear or favor, and he is following all the processes, right? Then he is undeterred by name calling and bad behavior of the minister's son. So he's still continuing to do his duty. He is doing everything perfectly, and he is not being biased towards the minister's son. He also wants to take action against the minister's son for drunk driving, as well as for obstruction of duty by a public servant, because he takes him to the police station, right? SHO, he is about to file a complaint. He is in ethical dilemma about the superior's direction and the constable's situation, right? The constable is in his team, and now he was going to write down a complaint, but he got a call from the superior. So main ethical dilemma is being faced by the SHO. The SHO's superior wants the SHO to release the boy without any arrest or fine, right? So what he wants the SHO to do is dereliction of his duty. This is immoral. This is immoral and unethical behavior, and he is also letting his teammates down in the process. Okay, so next one is the minister. His reputation might suffer if his son's behavior comes into the public domain. That is something that you can decipher from the case study. That he is also pressurizing the SHO superior to take back the complaint and leave or release the boy without arrest or any fine. His interests lie in saving his son, and he is also taking advantage of his position to save his son, right? Public at large, this is something that I have thought about while reading the case study, that what if the minister's son's request is acceded to? Then we are doing a huge disfavor to the public, right? Breaking of rules is against public welfare. Breaking of rules for the relatives of people in power is not ideal in a society. And making exceptions is not good for public safety and does not set a good precedent, right? Moving on. Action to be taken by the SHO. So what should the SHO do? It's very clear that he should take action against the minister's son, because that is the most ethical thing to do. So SHO should insist on written orders by his superior. Why should he insist on written orders? Because even his superior knows that he cannot do anything. He cannot suggest anything or advise his subordinate to do something which is not legal or which is not moral and ethical, right? So he will not give written orders. He should take action against a drunk driving by the minister's son. In addition, he should charge the minister's son for obstructing conduct of duty by a government servant, because he tried to slap the constable. He has been throwing tantrums and dropping names. Moreover, he can also initiate action for trying to assault the constable. Right? He should record everything in the case, even the calls by his superior, to let him free. Okay, so if he does that, any action against the SHO will be thought about before taking that action and before completing that action, because he would have written on record that my superior has also asked me to let him go free. The demerit in this case is that the SHO superior and the minister in question can take action against him and the constable. If not in this particular case, in any other even genuine mistake of the SHO, action can be taken against him. However, since he's only doing his duty, he should stick to his decision. And the merit is that he upholds his integrity and responsibility as a civil servant. So now we move to the practice case studies. Please solve these case studies and send your answers to the Sunya team for evaluation. In recent times, there has been an increasing concern in India to develop effective civil service ethics, code of conduct, transparency measures, ethics and integrity systems, and anti-corruption agencies. In view of this, there is need being felt to focus on three specific areas which are directly relevant to the problems of internalizing integrity and ethics in the civil services. So this is a previous year question, and the concern here is to develop good ethics, code of conduct, transparency and integrity systems. Right, so there are three specific areas which are mentioned. These are as follows: anticipating specific threats to ethical standards and integrity in the civil services. So what are the threats and pitfalls and shortcomings that you can think of which might be arising in the future to the ethical standards and integrity of the civil servants? And strengthening the ethical competence of civil servant. uh, so here you should be focusing on how a civil servant can develop his competence or ability to judge the ethical situations, and developing administrative processes and practices which promote ethical values and integrity in civil services. So what practices and what processes do you institutionalize in the administration which by themselves promote ethical values, right? So suggest institutional measures to address the above three issues. Here the keyword is institutional measures. So these measures should not be personalized or customized or according to what your opinion is. The measures have to be institutional, or what can be followed or implemented in an organization, right? Moving on. This is practice case study number 2. So you are a senior officer at an intelligence agency working for the internal security of the nation. You find out that junior officer has been a victim of honey trapping through social media. So honey trapping is a fairly common crime. You should keep an eye out for such terms in the newspapers. In all of this, his phone was hacked and confidential files were leaked. So the entire department has come together and wants you to take strict action against that officer for his behavior. The junior officer is a highly skilled and valuable asset for the organization. He is also very close to you, as you have mentored him throughout, and he also respects you a lot. Moreover, any action against him might attract media attention and bring a bad repute to the organization at large. So what are the ethical issues involved and the options available to you in such a situation? Also suggest a course of action that you would like to follow. Right? So basically Just to clarify, honey trapping is an investigative practice which uses romantic relationships for political or monetary purpose. Basically, uh, a person tries to form a romantic relationship with another person and tries to use this relationship to get information about some sensitive matters which are in the possession of that particular person. Thank you so much. Hope you liked the video.